January the 28th, 2026, and you know why you're here, so let's kick this off right and introduce the players. Hey, I'm Jarazar, a WoW esports aficionado.
What's up, guys? It's Big Moran, a classic Andy combatant.
Hey, I'm Treesap Jake.
What?
And that's it.
What?
That's all you need to know.
That's it, guys. I mean, it's pre-patch, so you're only getting you can't unlock the rest of the Treesap Jake introduction until midnight drops.
Unless you pay for the epic pack, you know.
Exactly.
Then you get,
The
then you get a
epic Jake
taste.
edition.
I got the epic pack. Come on, give me the juice. Where's the juice?
Find out next episode. I'll do a special one.
Oh my gosh. What's going on here? What's going on? All right. So, pre-patch just dropped. Have you guys... So, I'm going to be honest. My life has been crazy busy, but I also had like super anxiety about even logging in because, you know, with all the add-ons and the turmoil and everything, I actually was... I decided to just obliterated my whole install. Like I deleted my data files, so they all got renewed. I deleted my WTF folder, so away, and then I got rid of all my add-on folder. So I started from scratch, and that was actually really anxiety driving because then I had to rebuild everything. So that between that and being busy, I only logged in. I think I want to be honest. I want to say I logged in 3 times total. One time was just to check some things. I got a whole bunch of errors. Another time I logged back in, worked my UI, and then a third time I logged in, did some auction house stuff, did training grounds, and I couldn't even really play the training grounds because I had so many Lua errors that I was actually spending more clicks, more actions per minute closing Lua errors than actually being able to play the battleground. But how about you guys? Like, Jake, you first. You made a bit of a tweet this morning. Are you even playing?
Yeah, so funnily enough, it is a season of pre-patches because, as you know, obviously we've just hit the midnight pre-patch.
Mm-hmm.
But on TBC, it's been pre-patched for a little while. I've played a lot more TBC Classic, and in general, it's a very interesting thing, I think, sometimes to consider retail pre-patches versus kind of classic pre-patches, because in this sort of cycle that we are now sort of experiencing of sort of them going back and redoing stuff, which I think is a really good idea. You experience pre-patches in a slightly different way, you know, like in the sort of sense that, like, for classic at the minute, you've got the old vanilla world, but with TBC updated talents and mechanics and various things like that, which is interesting. It's kind of in the same way that sort of nowadays in retail, I think things tend to be a bit more homogenized. You know, I think I remember the only one that I think that in recent memory that had the most impact on me from a pre-patch was the Dragonflight pre-patch, because of the way that it introduced the talents and things were very different, and things sort of shifted. So in the same vein now, for the midnight pre-patch, everyone's getting used to no add-ons. So it's all kind of a bit all over the place. I don't think they've sadly given us enough intent to even want to log on. So I don't know. I'm not sure. Honest answer is I haven't really been on, so I don't know. But from what I'm hearing, people are liking certain aspects of it and really hating other aspects of it.
Yeah,
I think
and the community's definitely been divided on love and hate of the pre-patch.
For sure.
Go ahead, Big.
well, I think what Jake is kind of getting at is a bit interesting. Like, the thing with the TBC pre-patch that's kind of fun is vanilla and TBC were like so distinct, and you had a bunch of new abilities you got in TBC, right? Like rogues got Shadow Step. I believe mages got their water elemental. I'm not sure about that, but I'm pretty sure they did.
Yeah.
And so right now on the TBC pre-patch, it's kind of like you're playing almost like a sort of Season of Discovery-esque type game where you're playing a new expansion with like new abilities, but you're still in your old gear and everything's kind of scaled a bit funky. Whereas on retail, it doesn't really feel like the pre-patch feels a little bit different. Like you don't get that same experience, and in some ways it does feels a bit clunkier on retail. Like we're we don't even have our Apex talent, so class design isn't like we're playing this kind of like half-baked version of every spec right now
Mhm.
on retail. And we don't really get to have that pre-midnight experience, which is maybe a good thing. But I think what I'm concerned about, we'll talk about this throughout this podcast, is that maybe people's expectations of midnight are currently being harmed by the pre-patch, which is a big worry for me, because I actually think midnight is pretty fun.
Mhm. And I think you're right. I think there's so much hype about Midnight, and they've been working really hard. Like the amount of advertising that's been going into this expansion, I think is higher than I've seen in previous. I think Dragonflight had quite a bit, but I don't remember War Within being quite this many events, quite this. I mean, like we're seeing stuff around the world. They're doing stuff at live events and everything. They're really pushing the housing thing. Um, but even like today, like, so the pre-patch, the actual pre-patch event started yesterday, and it's like people are expecting this big full-fledged event, which fine, historically that's usually been something going on. But now I'm hearing even people are like, this feels kind of nothing burger. Like there's a bunch of little mini bosses, you run a bunch of rares, you run around, they all die. There's an achievement, and then otherwise it's just farming world quests for currency and leveling your alts, which is really, I think, the one thing that people should be doing right now is decide what you want to play. If it's your main, make sure you got some gear so you're good to go when the expansion actually launches, when what's it 12.1 drops, or if you want to try something new, take the moment now, level, get it a bunch of gear so that when it's actual go time for midnight, you're able to just walk in and do stuff and not struggle. I think that's really what this is, as far as I think on the PvE side. But the PvP side, like I'm hearing there's a bunch of bugs. People are crying on a number of different places about Demon Hunter Devour, um, which apparently isn't actually bugged, but just that there's no PvP modifiers. Um, like I guess they did that on purpose. I don't
Yeah.
know. What
Well,
do you
I'm
think?
guessing what's happening is like there's this new spec which they've had zero scaling for,
Mm-hmm.
currently. So they have no baseline for what that spec should, what that spec's numbers should be, and they just suddenly put it in this, new environment. And yeah, it's one-shotting with this sort of gimmicky collapsing star build that a lot of people are playing, and yeah, it does it does ridiculous damage. But I mean, we can talk about this later, but the new spec is so weird in its design. Like, uh, it has elements of like being a survival hunter almost, a mid-range spec, but it's a caster that doesn't really cast. Like, it's all kind of confusing. And yeah, this just happens to be one-shotting people right now.
I think I
It just
think
so happens.
I think the problem is as well is like the modern version of the game really like homogenizes so much that I think adding different specs to it has always kind of, especially stuff like that. Like I remember even just the change from like survival hunter
Mm-hmm.
going to from range to melee never really felt like they actually moved to melee, as they're kind of like this, as you say, this sort of mid range, but they kind of like almost felt in a way that they had like the best of both. They're the kind of the insane damage and then the ability just to get away, and then still do damage from afar. And it's kind of like, I think that's the worry for me, is that they keep adding these specs that kind of do all. So all it is really like another spec on your favorite class that kind of has that identity but does the thing that you want it to do. And that's why I worry for PvP, because then everyone's kind of a mid-ranged problem, has a mid-range spec. I think if they're going to do what I think I've seen them do, see them working on, sorry, it kind of looks like that, which I think is a worry, because the more time I spend in Classic, the more I kind of go, identity was such a great feeling to have, to understand what your kind of class identity is and what you can do, or your spec identity is. Makes you feel like when you're in it, you're actually sort of like, yeah, I'm really good at rogue, or I'm really good at mages or ranged or something like that, you've got like a kind of concept, and that kind of makes you feel like you belong in a niche. Whereas nowadays, I think maybe the reason why everyone gets so worn out is that you don't feel like you belong anywhere anymore because everything does so much of the same thing.
Yeah, it's interesting. I do find. Well, we even saw that when Demon Hunter was even first introduced, it was kind of a hodgepodge of other abilities, just renamed and stuff, right? Like,
Mhm.
and being a hero class, like they definitely gave it a lot of the strengths that you'd expect to see in a hero class. So it kind of makes sense that Devourer is again, a little bit of this, a little bit of that. That mid range, they always said they were going to do that. I don't know if we really have that many mid range classes though. We definitely have a lot of melee, and we have a lot of ranged, but I can't say there's a lot that are mid range other than this new Devourer and obviously Survival.
Mm.
Um, I'm kind of curious though. Like I can't really see them adding anything more as far as it goes to classes and or giving other classes some other spec, like a fourth spec.
Well, there was that survey a few weeks or days ago. I don't remember how long it's been, where they were asking people, I guess, like their opinions on potential new specs that they could add to the game. And my gut
Mhm.
reaction was like, do we even need more specs? Like, in my opinion, we need
Yeah,
less. But
that's
you
true.
know, uh,
And you and me had that conversation in Discord where we talked, and I was like, it reminds me of Dungeons and Dragons, where we went from original Dungeons and Dragons to advanced Dungeons and Dragons, and suddenly people were making hybrid classes where once you reach max level, as a like as a warrior, then you could pick up like as a mage or something like that, and kind of hybridish. And I wonder if they're trying to go that route.
They could do. I think we've
yeah.
already got hero specs as well. So it's like
Mm-hmm.
not only have you got like your class and you've got your spec, you've also got then your hero spec. And I don't necessarily mind those parts of it too much, but I think there was just something so beautiful about original WoW
Totally.
simplicity. And I think, like, okay, yeah, it was not the most balanced game, and I don't think TBC or Wrath or whatever, any of those were as balanced as we all thought they were. But I do think that there is something that we've kind of lost along the way nowadays at the end of the expansion, and I do kind of hope, there is a part of me that really hopes that they do a full reset at the end of the trilogy, like a proper full reset, and just kind of have a look at where WoW is going to progress and what they want to do with the game, because I do think there are aspects of it where I would love a modern WoW that has sort of modern WoW design, but kind of less crazy in the sort of like the amount of things that they can do, like all the flashiness and everything. It's so intense. Why can't we have like something that got that great design but simple again, like something simple
Yeah.
and enjoyable?
I was actually thinking about this too recently. Like after the World Soul Saga, I really do think we need some sort of WoW version 2. Like there's like so much of the game design is built on what was previously made, right?
Mm.
Mm-hmm.
And it's a constant iterative process every single expansion. And it's like, well, how much can you actually iterate on World of Warcraft without getting too ridiculous? And I think we're approaching the point where any more classes, more specs, it's going to get into that ridiculous territory that they kind of need to almost start the game from scratch again. Maybe they have a mage, but maybe instead of having a rogue they have something else. Maybe instead of a warrior they have something. You
Mm-hmm.
could still maybe have all those classic RPG identities, but maybe repackage them in a way that still feels like WoW, but a new type of WoW, right? And yeah, I don't think adding a shaman tank spec is the answer. I think it has to be a from scratch type thing. Because yeah, I think at this point, I think we've exhausted all reasonable possibilities of class design. We've now gone through a bunch of different systems with PvE, dungeon design, raid design. We've gone through a bunch of different systems with PvP. Maybe it's time to start from fresh, because
Yeah.
I don't know how
I
much more we could do.
I don't think you're ever going to see that, because the reason why World of Warcraft took off so well is because of the switch from EverQuest to EverQuest 2. and people just hated it. They, starting again from zero. And a lot of those people came to World of Warcraft because that was seen as the haven. It fixed a bunch of the mistakes of EverQuest. It took a bunch of good stuff from EverQuest 2, built on that great knowledge base that Blizzard had in game design. I am serious. Like, I think technically, if you want to think about it, we're actually on like World of Warcraft 4.0 as far as like
Yeah.
if it was game iterations, but I don't think we're ever going to see like we're done World of Warcraft, we'll actually call a World of Warcraft 2. I don't think we're ever going to see that. I think if anything, it's just going to be continuous iteration. Do the purges, do the ability purges, change the game somewhat from and they've rebuilt Bones Up from the inside out. We don't really see it, but they did it during what was it, Cataclysm, and I think they did it again when was it, around BFA or something like that, or it was just War Within. But they've done some, like, gone inside under the hoods and completely changed things. So I think let's talk, instead of like what ifs and what's possible, let's talk pre-patch. So other things we've seen around the community, people commenting on things we've experienced. Not big. I didn't really get too much of a feel at how much you're playing or not. Have you experienced the DC bug in PvP?
I've been mostly playing the beta these past few weeks, so I haven't really played retail that much. But I understand that people were DCing like crazy. Like if you got stunned while you were jumping or something, you would DC. Yep. And I know there was the training grounds bug, or I don't know if it was a bug, but they were like one-shotting players, right? Yeah. So not really a good training grounds experience. Other than that, I don't know if of any other major PvP specific bugs other than what you described earlier with the UI errors and stuff. I mean, add-ons are kind of their own separate mess right now that people are kind of scrambling to figure out. But yeah, I think my overall opinion on the pre-patch is that it's the pre-patch. It's going to be messy, of course. Like, I think people should temper their expectations a little bit because we're kind of playing almost a beta version of the game, right? We're not actually playing Midnight. Of course, there's going to be weird consequences that happen, but they'll get fixed.
Yeah.
Hopefully.
Speaking of things that did get fixed, I tweeted earlier, but they hot fixed. Apparently, precog was getting triggered even if a person was interrupted. So they fixed that.
Oh,
at
yeah.
least.
Yeah, I think the thing is, the thing will always be an issue is that pre-patch is always crazy, and especially with Arena and everything, it's always been a kind of a little bit nuts. I remember, my most fond memory was, I think was the Shadowlands pre-patch where I think we had Echoing Shock on Ellie, and I was just like, you could use it on, I think, Earthshock or Lava Burst. I think it might have been Earthshock at that point, where the Earthshocks were just like critting you for all of your HP pretty much when you used it with Echoing Shock, because of the way that it triggered the sort of aspects of your kit, and it was so much fun. Kind of doing that sort of stuff. So it's fun and it's stupid, and I think people need to realize that it's not permanent. It's not going to be like this. It's just a taste, and things will be balanced for level 90. I want to say,
yeah,
right?
90.
Yeah, 90, level 90. So I really don't think it's too big a deal. I think the things to kind of worry about are like the bugs. Like, as you said, like the DCing bugs are quite annoying to have. If they stay, will they continue to be annoying? Things like that, and aspects of the add-ons. I really think Blizzard they should have been really focusing on their own add-ons within game. For example, like the damage meter being decent and showing enemy team healing and damage output. And then other aspects, like, as you say, like getting your Omni bar in the game, Omni CD, all those kind of stuff that we've had in the past that are really useful to know, that should already be baked into the UI.
Well,
so,
yeah. I mean, if you want to pivot to add-ons, to me, it's been really funny viewing the community reaction to add-ons, because there is maybe this expectation, this false expectation a lot of players had that add-ons were quote unquote banned.
Mhm.
There's this sentiment, and it's been kind of funny reading the PvP subreddit over the past few days where people were like, "Wait a second, I thought all add-ons were getting banned. What happened?" Like,
Yeah. No,
I thought,
just weak wars.
yeah, and I think people had this expectation that they would log into the pre-patch or the midnight beta, and there'd just be like this perfect UI waiting for them.
Yeah.
Whereas it's like it's clearly not the case. Like I would argue that the UI out of the box is maybe even worse now than it previously was. Um,
Yep.
there's a lot of issues. You know, for instance, as a healer, by default, like the icons of buffs on your party frames are so small, and you have to like find the setting to increase the buff size, and it's not really
Mhm.
obvious where it is at first. There's all these problems with nameplates where
Yep.
they're supposed to now show like enemy cooldowns, which they do, but then sometimes they will show things that you don't even care about. Like a mage will pop combust, you'll see combust, you're like, okay, that makes sense. But then like the mage will buff themselves with arcane intellect, and you'll see that too. It's like I don't need to see that on a nameplate. Like, why is that there, right? So
I think
there's
that has to do
a
with
lot of
purge, though, right? If you have the ability to purge,
it,
then it
it,
comes
it
up.
does, but my point is like what Blizzard has decided should appear on the nameplates is so random.
Yep.
Like sometimes it's things are there that make sense and things are there that don't make sense, right? It's
Mhm.
like and it's really on a weird spec by spec basis. And yeah, and then there's this like ongoing problem with you're targeting someone and they have a million random little buffs, so you can't really see that they've popped a cooldown, or you can't really
Yep.
see that they have like a CC protection. There's all these little tiny parts of the UI that Blizzard has still yet to figure out. I
Mhm.
even tweeted yesterday the new feature where if someone goes out of range, it makes their frame like go to 55% opacity or something like
Yep.
that. And
Saw that.
it's almost impossible to see people's HP in some situations.
Yep.
Um, and you know what's ironic about all this is the fix is once again add-ons, because with better Blizz frames, there's a setting where you could adjust the opacity when someone goes out of range. So
Yeah.
that's what I did today. Instead of 55%, I set it to 90%, and it's much more reasonable.
Mhm.
So it is just really funny to me that people are like so happy. Like a few months ago, people were like, "Oh, finally, even playing ground, no more add-ons. I
Mhm.
can't wait to not need to configure anything." And then like now, it's like there's this complete 180 for a lot of people in the
Yeah.
community, and maybe some people feel like their expectations weren't met, but they
Mhm.
kind of maybe had the wrong set of expectations to begin with.
Well, but they kind of sold it that way. It's like, okay, oh, like, totally just knocked my mic. They're like, okay, we're gonna get, we're gonna stop these add-ons. We're gonna break them. And then when they first broke them, like they pulled back so much that literally nothing worked. And then they started giving it back, but I think the damage was already done by that, because then everybody's like, oh my god, everything's broken. And then it was like, okay, no, we'll let you guys still do UIs, like move stuff around, and that. It's like, okay. um I think the real issue is I think they're still walking back how far they went on the restrictions, like because they just did another change where they released a little bit more of their game API to function, to allow some add-ons to function. Um so I'm not surprised that if at the first, when Midnight was first announced and Alpha came out and everybody was reacting to the add-on changes, if that's all the thing that anybody heard, and now they came back, a couple months later, and they're like, okay, I want to play now. What do you mean there's add-ons? I thought they were all. It's like, okay, but then as well, if there's no add-ons and Blizzard said we're going to make the UI so you don't need add-ons, okay, if I had a totally customized UI, I think it'd be fair to expect that if Blizzard is getting rid of all the add-ons that I used to make that I would have the functionality baked into the game now, which I think, yeah, that's probably not the best expectation of a player. But I think on the other side, I think Blizzard should have been a bit more detailed in what they were going to do and set that expectation, which I will say it hasn't really been a strong suit of Blizzard. You know, they say things, they know what they're saying, they know what they're trying to say, but they lack the detail and explain, or they don't go into the in-depth explanation. It feels like, or if they do, it's in some random blue post somewhere that gets lost in the noise so fast because their forums are so busy. So again,
I think,
I don't know. There's something there. There's something missing.
and I think it was really tricky for them to set the right set of expectations with add-ons, because I think for a lot of people, whether or not they realize it or not, like your add-ons and your UI are basically like a transmog for your gameplay, you know?
Absolutely.
Like, and I think people over the past 20 years have gotten really used to their screens looking a certain way and icons being displayed a certain way, you know, in the same way that they like their transmogs. And so, you know, people, Blizzard, I think, for better, like maybe they wanted to, I don't know if they like it might some conspiracy theory part of me feels like they knew that they're gonna have to you know, unrestrict things eventually, and they
Mhm.
just wanted to kind of take a very aggressive stance early on to maybe
Sure.
temper, like slowly temper people's expectations. But I don't know if it like it that was the successful strategy. Like clearly, I think in my view,
Mhm.
this was all an attempt to get rid of weak auras.
Oh yeah.
And they only could do that by having aggressive restrictions, right?
Hmm.
Because weak auras could basically do anything.
Yep.
So the goal was to eliminate weak auras, and it's been kind of a scramble on their end to kind of now put the pieces back together again in an environment where there's all these secrets or whatever, and
Mhm.
people want their they want their transmog on this. They want their UI, right?
Yep.
They want their experience of WoW to be cohesive, understandable, and you know, similar to what they've been experiencing all 20 years. And it's just been, yeah, I think it's just been a mess. But I think, you know, looking forward, I'm curious to get your guys' thoughts on this. Like, if I could ask for one more thing, maybe from the UI, it would definitely be the ability to track interrupts, because it is a bit wonky right now to play Arena without any responsiveness to seeing you know, whether or not you juke to kick. And I was talking about this with I'm sorry for rambling a little bit, but I was talking about this with Zenlin the other day. The consequence of not being able to see enemy cooldowns is the fact that you don't really get that feedback that you used to get. Like if you used to juke a kick, you'd instantly you'd be like, oh, I
Yep.
juked a kick. I mean, of course, precog, right? But
Hmm.
or if you like faded a priest sphere or faded a stormbolt, like you kind of knew, or you know, you got that, like, ooh, the button lit up, that means I was successful. But now you don't, because you can't track cooldowns, you don't really get that feedback from doing these outplays, you know.
Hmm.
Like I don't know if I shadow belted the blind because I don't know if the rogue blinded. Like I can't see
Yeah.
it. And so it's you don't get that feedback, which is, I think, it's a bit weird to play like that.
Yeah. You're not wrong. I think on the other side, we talked about it before, but and I'm trying to remember. It was, I want to say it was during last AWC, but the casters were going on and on about how this amazing gameplay where the healer just went ahead and healed where most healers wouldn't. But the reason why he was able to go ahead and just heal was because he looked quickly at his interrupt bar and saw that there was no interrupts, so he was able to free
Mhm.
cast. Versus without that, he would not have been able to. His teammate would have died, and they would have lost instead of win. And that's the game. That's the game breaking difference right there. Um, I I I can't help but wonder. I think we've talked about this before. I've heard other people iterate or say it out loud. Is why don't they make it so that this stuff is available in PvP and just not in the rest of the game? And I'm not sure if it works that way. I'm not sure if under the hood they have that ability to let the API give data only in instance PvP, but not anywhere else. Um, which I think it would be a great answer. It'd help a lot of us, but
Well, I
unfortunately, I
know
think we're stuck.
there's different restrictions based on combat and combat in instances.
Hmm.
So I think there's that distinction, and maybe there is like a zone, like, you know, every arena I think is a zone.
Hmm.
So maybe in theory, there could be some way to reduce the limitations in, a specific zone. In these cases, arenas, but I'm not sure.
I think they would have to go into some base code and change a lot of the API then, and how that data is codified for presentation. In which case, then it'd be like, here's the ability regular, here's the ability in combat, here's the ability in combat instanced, and here's the ability in combat instanced PvP. And that sounds like a lot. I don't know.
Yeah.
That just sounds like it would bog down the servers even more, which is something we definitely don't want them having to do. Because, yeah. I want to roll back one thing else that we didn't talk about it, but for the add-ons is so right now there's a bunch of add-ons that didn't look like they're being updated, or they were, the add-on maker may have been waffling on whether they're going to update it or not. And so some people have gone ahead and decided that they were going to update the add-on. And I don't know if you've heard this or not, but apparently there's been a lot of quote unquote thievery. I got some whispers on a couple of them, but people, seeing where an add-on creator has taken an add-on, basically copied all of the code, maybe tweaked a little bit so it would work, and then called it their own, and posted it up on, hey, here's a new add-on, everybody, go ahead and have fun. And in the meantime, the actual add-on creator is like, I was working on that, I just can't do it full time, so it took longer. And I know that's also a hot mess right now amongst the chaos, is that we're now going to start seeing multiple versions of an add-on, essentially all the same. It's just, who has the root code and who copied and pasted, right? So I don't know how about Jake, are you in TBC, are we seeing a lot of add-ons? Because add-ons are still working there, right? Are people ripping off people's add-ons there a lot?
No, it's the same as always. I mean, things are still working. I think they added like edit mode so that you don't necessarily need as many like for your UI. So I mean, all the add-ons are still working as per usual. There's nothing too crazy. So I think it's one of those sort of things where I really think if Blizzard were going to do it like they were going to do it, they needed to make sure that they had everything in place by the time they pulled the plug. But I suppose I get it. I get the reason why is because they're now they can kind of try and focus on making interesting fights that aren't, just a whirling mess of UI clutter. I think that's the thing. Like that's what I would be looking forward to, is them making interesting fights in that regard for the PvE side of things. Like if it's a good raid, I'd probably do it. Like I mean, some of my favorite raids are like the Wrath raids and TBC raids. Like they're just quite fun things to do. And I think although those are very old games, I feel like kind of bringing it in and creating something that's interesting that works well would be good, knowing that, although I realize weaker ores are gone, there are still replacements to it from what I've heard. It would still be nice if there was a reason for it, if there was a focus on it, making PvP great because everyone hasn't got like a pinging noise going off in the background is wonderful, but we do kind of need some of the quality of life stuff that we've gotten used to. So I don't know. I think there's a way for it, but I'm not sure if I have the faith in Blizzard that I used to for these sort of issues, these sort of problems. And it's a real shame because I feel like there's opportunity,
Mm-hmm. I think you definitely hit on the head there with the faith issue, the lack of faith of if Blizzard will or not. Sorry, Big, you were going to comment on the whole add-on copy and paste thing.
Yeah, last week was the add-on wars, and I think it was more on the PvE side than anything else. I don't know the exact details, but I think during this, pre-patch time and prior to midnight, there were, I guess, a few different people, each vibe coding their own add-ons, and it got into one of those Spider-Man meme situations where all the add-ons kind of looked alike, and they're like, "Wait a second, you did this? No, you did that!" Like it's just like, and so I know, like even I think the big drama last week was Quasi, big Mythic Plus content creator. decided to just basically quit WoW, nuke his Discord, and nuke his whole UI project because of, I guess, some backlash he was getting for paywalling some of his add-ons. And that's one thing that I occasionally listen to Max in that podcast Potty C, and one of the things they were discussing a few weeks ago is like the add-on restrictions in some ways made paywalled add-ons a bit more lucrative in some like irony. Yeah, I mean a lot of, and like even like Quasi was now paywalling his UI. Obviously there's an elephant in the room, but part of the skill cap UI is paywalled, but I mean the core function is not. I mean that's a whole nother conversation of whether or not that's ethical and whatnot. But yeah, it was just a mix of like people being mad at paywalling, people being mad at vibe coding, people being mad at intellectual theft. So it was just a mess last week, but I think that has kind of calmed down now. So
I got pinged just yesterday.
Really? Okay, never mind then.
Yeah, no, it's still going live. I think there's, and yeah, even that was even happening with the crate tracker for crate farming during the last season.
Oh, the paywalling.
Yeah. The creator of that crate tracker decided they were going to paywall, so then so they disappeared, and I think they got banned or whatever, and then some other people took the add-on and basically copied and pasted and made it available again. So whatever. I think my best way of looking at it is that I'm all for iterating on people's ideas. I think that's one of the things that has happened in add-on creation for a while, and even on like our PvP websites and that, where people borrow ideas from each other and try to make things better. And that's how things improve, right? It's through that competition and through that take something, an idea from somebody else and build on it to make it better. I think the issue right now is during this massive chaos with add-on apocalypse is when you take something and just because you have more time, you're able to get it out faster than the person who originally created it, without even communicating with them. That's pretty shady. I'm not gonna lie, at least in my personal opinion. But by all means, I'd love to see more add-ons that try to return some of the functionality we lost as much as they can. Obviously, there's only so much add-on makers can do. Although I think was it before back during Midnight Alpha there, Big, you had saw somebody where they had a desktop add-on and it basically created an overlay just like Uyghurs and did a bunch of stuff. So I think the technology's out there. I'm wondering, so I guess here's another one, and I feel like I'm not sure how much you want to contribute to this, Jake, because it's more about the retail versus TBC. But the CC changes is that feeling better? Like how does that feel now?
It feels, well, it's a spec by spec and on a spec by spec basis. But for instance, I think as someone who plays Sub Rogue that it was a buff to Sub Rogue. DR is being 15 seconds long versus 18 seconds. It doesn't seem like that 3-second period would matter, but it kind of does for these specs that have like routine crowd control. Like if you have any spammable CC, or if you're like a Sub Rogue who can do a go every 20 seconds, the DR changes feel kind of like incredible, to be honest. Because like you could just do your stuff more often. But it was weird adapting to there not being a third DR. That's kind of been the weird thing. Like I've messed it up a few times so far on the beta where I'll go for a triple DR Cyclone, but at that point they're immune. So that's been a bit weird. But I think I don't know. I like the DR changes. And of course I'm biased because I liked playing Sub Rogue and I feel like it's a Sub Rogue buff. But yeah, it feels like you can do a lot, and they removed a lot of micro CC too in the process of doing this. So it's like all the tiny CCs don't really exist anymore. Well, not all, some of them do, but
yeah, they pruned a lot of them out.
Yeah, so it's I don't know. I think as I mentioned, I'm optimistic about Midnight. And I think the CC changes are a big part of that.
Okay. Is that carried over into TBC there, Jake?
I don't know. I think their things are pretty as they should be in TBC.
Okay.
But I do think in terms of the optimism, I am very I am a little bit more optimistic for Midnight because of what I've been told about the beta
Mm-hmm.
rather than what's going on in the pre-patch. And I think that's what people
Yeah.
should really focus on is that the beta is and the sort of the kind of PTR is looking good. So just kind of focus on that.
Yeah, it is. So on that, actually, I think I commented that on Twitter, but Level Add-in had even told me that that whole bug with Demon Hunter and them not being modified at all in PvP. Apparently, that 12.1 on the beta. It's all fixed. They have they have good tuning. They have all that. It just wasn't implemented in retail yet. So I don't know if they're gonna hot fix it. Maybe not. In which case, DH is just gonna be broken until actual expansion launch, which is kind of a little ridiculous, I think. But hey, have fun. um, I don't know. I'm kind of torn. I have fond memories of TBC and understanding that they've done some changes and iterated on it a little bit to make it a bit more fun. So it's a little bit different. It's exciting, but at the same time, I only have so much time in my day and my life, and retail. I like playing retail. I do enjoy it, and I want to play this new expansion and get a feel for the story. So I don't know, it's hard. I don't know. Is the doom and gloom actually warranted? I, I mean, we had great expectations for Shadowlands,
Yeah, yeah, we did.
right?
Oh man,
We had
yeah.
huge expectations. Shadowlands sounded like it was going to be a blast. It was going to be great. They put a lot of focus in PvP, right? And it being a grindy hot mess, in my opinion. I
I
don't
do,
know.
I do, I do think there is something to say about this. Just I don't know whether it's a slight tangent, but I do want to say that the projection from BFA till now has been stonks rising for PvP, just in general. I think when you think back to how it was in BFA
Hmm.
versus now, when in BFA we all had to do PvE to try and get the right
Yeah.
corruptions and the right stats on our PvP gear, it is bonkers better. It's far better than it's ever been.
Oh yeah.
So I think sometimes we do take for granted how much better it is, but there is a distinct lack of notice or care, I think, for our community, especially in retail, where I think things are just so important to have the care. I know, like on Classic, they have a team that kind of speaks out a bit more publicly because it's just a smaller team and it's something they already know, so they don't think they need to be as hush hush about it. But I do think Blizzard really are missing out not having something that's kind of dedicated to us so that they can really create something that draws people back in and create something that people really love. You have the opportunity to.
I would argue I wouldn't even like dedicated, great, but even like just some effort. That they clearly listen because they're making changes that we're asking for. Maybe not all of them, but it's happening. But there's like no communication. Not even like I understand we've talked about it before your continued crusade to ask for dedicated PvP. I just want them to even just on regular channels, and even then that seems, at best we get hot fixes, and maybe with an explanation, likely not. And I feel like even that is lacking. um I don't know. I feel like I'd like to see more. I'd like to see, like, I'd love to see water coolers come back is what I'd love to see.
Well, we are getting some what thingy tomorrow. I don't some roadmap stuff tomorrow,
Hmm.
so
Yeah,
that's nice.
the
But
state of Azeroth.
yeah, the state of
It's,
Azeroth. We need a state of Azeroth every month, you know. But
Indeed.
yeah, not to beat the dead horse too much, but the lack of communication to me is just honestly jarring.
mhm.
Um, as someone who you know creates content and has customers and has people get upset, like it's good to talk to people, get feedback from people, and kind of understand your community and maybe talk back to them. It's just I don't understand the strategy of not communicating. It doesn't make any sense to me. And I know it's like, well, if they do communicate, people are still going to be upset, but it's like at least you did something, something is better than nothing, I think, when it comes to these, community management tasks. Because yeah, the radio silence is just it's spooky almost. Like, what do they not care at all? Like, it's like, give us something, give us a crumb.
I want to quote right from our chat tonight is, I just think they don't handle criticism well. Reddit and Twitter, or X, can be fairly toxic in regards to how they critique Blizzard. For a while, they did go to Blue Sky for what I assume is that reason. And I think they actually went to Blue Sky. They're quite active over there as far as Blizzard, but it's just for advertising. It's basically whatever they put out on X also comes out on Blue Sky. But I think maybe that's part of it, is they just don't handle the criticism well. And I mean, it's possible if they think that they're really good and they're doing such a great job, and you hear it like every time somebody quits, is like, oh, great team, learned so much, best people ever, and everything else. I mean, if you think that you're that great, hearing that you something you put your sweat into and you worked really hard to design and iterated to try to make it the best possible, and somebody just comes along and tears it down, that doesn't feel great. And okay, so maybe, but maybe don't focus on the one person. But if you have only one person that says it's poop, then okay. But out of a player base of 10 million, even 1,000 actually isn't that many people. Like, if everybody else is using it or doing it, then maybe it's okay. I do find the thing that I get a little irksome about is when people talk about how great PvP was back in older eras of World of Warcraft, and not realizing that it's because the queue times were shorter, and it seemed like there's more people playing, versus now it seems like there's a smaller player base that does PvP, especially arenas, and they're only playing until they get their 1800, until they get their transmog, whatever that goal was. They might go up to 21 at best, and then they just drop and they move on to another class because they just want to keep getting all that stuff, and that's what really they're focusing on. And so it's not, again, it's no longer really team based. Everybody's doing solo shuffle, so they're just playing for themselves, and that's why we're not seeing as many people, as much activity, because you're not seeing people that are stuck in these bands. They're not that slow grind from 15 to 18. They're able to just rocket through it and then get what they want, and then they're back to zero once they pick up their other class. So I feel like maybe that's the rose-colored glasses when people look backwards and they're like, oh, it was so much better back then. It's like, well, yeah, you wanted better queue times, but the queue times were really great only because it was a really slow grind, versus the quality of life right now is much better. And yeah, I don't know. I really think I think the game is in a really good place.
Yeah, I'll say two things to that. I think number one, there's this loud and vocal part of the community who, no matter what, wants to just be the number one World of Warcraft hater. And I love getting into fights with people like this on Twitter, because it's like it's funny making fun of them. That's why, no offense, Jake, but I entered the episode by saying I'm a classic Andy combatant. I'm not saying you're a classic Andy. I think you're a classic player, but you're not a classic Andy, because there's a difference.
You know what? I appreciate that, Big. I really appreciate you not calling me a classic Andy.
Yeah, because like there's this type of like classic Andy personality who, no matter what, will just hate Blizzard, hate World of Warcraft, think everything is terrible, not recognize an ounce of good in the game, which is unfortunate. So I think that's a problem, that there are all these WoW haters out there, and that's all they're gonna do is just hate on the game. And yeah, the game is good. Like, WoW is still fun, and I think it's very hard. We don't really see the people praising WoW too much, because it in this day and age, negative feelings tend to gravitate to the top. And I think it's become lucrative for, I'm not going to name who the content creator is, but I think that certain content creator who is very popular, proved that you could just be endlessly critical of WoW and people will love you for it. And so I think that, there's this feedback loop of people hating on WoW and these classic Andies who will just eat that up and regurgitate that endlessly. And I agree, the game is fun.
Yeah, I think you're right. I think I know who you're talking about. I think I may have called out on that on X. Maybe.
Yes, maybe.
Maybe. People didn't like when I did that though. Apparently I was gatekeeping, but whatever. All right. You have we're so close to end of time here. I just want to ask this one. You asked this one question in our notes. No major system overhaul for PvP. Yeah, so I think that's one thing a lot of people were complaining about during War Within is the MMR, how wonky it is for solo shuffle. People going 3-3 and losing MMR. People going 4-2 and getting zero CR. That kind of stuff. And then also there's been a constant amount of feedback to Blizzard asking for a change in rewards, maybe getting some stuff at the lower level, people asking for stuff above Gladiator but before rank 1, to keep to entice people to keep going. And now the Gladiator is pushing down to 2300. We don't know where rank 1's going to end up, but I mean that might be, if rank 1 is 3k, that's a 700 CR difference without any other benefit other than just grinding for that chance of getting rank 1. Are we hoping maybe come Titan that we'll see some of these changes? Because there's been no hint of it whatsoever from Midnight. What do you think?
Well, I think it's possible.
Oh, sorry. What was that, Jake?
No, I think at this stage, yeah, maybe it is going to be that late, but I'm still holding out for the idea that they do some sort of hard reset alongside the story at the end of it all. I mean, fingers crossed, touch wood, is my opinion.
Yeah. Big?
I think we need something new for the competitive players. No offense to the casual BG enthusiast. I love playing BGs, but I think there's been a lot of sentiment from the arena community that we haven't really had anything new in a while. I think, granted, solo shuffle was kind of the new thing, but at this point, it's well, solo shuffle is kind of, now in part of the game, and yeah, I think we need a new system specifically for competitive arena players because I think they are the ones who feel probably the most left out after all these years.
Oh, definitely. I mean, I would actually argue that I think the RBG community is even more left out because they were already tiny to begin with, and they got decimated by BG Blitz. So I think, and they never really had anything. It was the hero of the horde or hero of the alliance. It was always the same achievement. It wasn't even changed. There wasn't even anything per expansion to show that it was a new achievement. So I think if they were going to do something reward wise, maybe do it in tandem, do arenas and rated battlegrounds, do the fixed team instance arena PvP, or sorry, instance PvP, give them something before we start iterating on the solo queue. Sure. But I think we're gonna skip the one thing we changed tonight though. I'm gonna throw shoutouts. I think we need to end this. Big's gonna fall asleep on us. Or not Big, sorry, Jake. But
they can also fall asleep. It is Taco Wednesday. No, that's Taco Tuesday, isn't it? What was it?
Yeah. What is for Wednesdays? No. What's your shout out tonight there, Big?
Now that you mentioned tacos, shout out to tacos. I really encourage everyone to try Al Pastor tacos if they've never had them before. They're very good. They come with a little pineapple on them sometimes, which is, if you, I know that the pineapple on pizza is a big conversation point, but pineapple on tacos, I mean, that's really good too. So shout out to tacos. Shout out to Al Pastor tacos.
All right. That sounds a good one. Jake, what's going
Oof.
on with you?
Let me think. I think shout out to. Oh, I don't know. This is a really tough one. I'm gonna shout out to the guys on the beta, who have been over this time period like tirelessly working hard on fixing bugs and giving us information. I think that kind of specifically kind of goes out to like Skill Caps and other content creators as well who go out there, expansion by expansion, and continue to kind of disseminate information, which I think is useful for us because without you guys, it'd be really difficult to kind of know what we're doing and where we're going.
Thank you.
I'm going to give a quick shout out to Michelangelo. She knows why, and quick shout out to her for being awesome and sending me some happy thoughts in DMs. So thank you to her, and I continue to hear that all the best of luck in BG Blitz and Rated BGs. So on that, Big, you want to kick us off for the rest of the show?
Yes, I can do that. If you want to contact us for any reason, you can do so directly on X at technically_PvP or on Blue Sky at technicallypvp.bluesky.social or by an email to technicallypvp@gmail.com. You can also join our discussions on the Bonus Roll Productions Discord.
And you can visit the Bonus Roll website to find the podcast directory with us and many other great shows at www.bonusroll.gg. This directory has a review system, so head on over there and tell everyone what you think of your favorite shows, including our own.
Indeed. And as always, in our show notes, you'll find links of where to find us and maybe a couple drops of what we've been talking about tonight, although probably not tonight. But yeah, you know how it goes. Anyways, thanks everybody for listening, and we'll chat with you next time. Good night, everybody.